Welcome to another presentation of the Sound of Love Conference. We've now got Randy Masters. Hi, Randy.
Hey, David. We always have great interviews, David. Always.
Excellent. What have you been up to lately? You're still
Uh,
alive, I see.
yeah. I came through some very, very interesting things. Almost too interesting. But I'm in better shape in a lot of ways. It's just how it is. Fortunately, I've done a lot of homework on health and love and other things that helped me pull through. And so that's very good. Yeah, I just taught a couple day class on the divine feminine, which was really, really fun,
Mm.
and what that is. And it relates to what we can talk about here today as well.
Mm.
And, in terms of that aspect of creation,
Mhm.
very deep. And that's in people's psyche, and they want to know about things. And there's sacred numbers with all of that. I had a blast.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Randy is a multidisciplined alchemist, an award-winning composer, a professional musician, multi-instrumentalist, a former university music teacher, and the designer of sacred geometry and sound products. Randy makes all types of things, including jewelry and tuning forks and sound tubes and just a whole range of different things. He's a wellness facilitator for sound healing, spiritual counseling, regenesis, and universal white time. He's been teaching at the Sound Healing Institute here for about 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Over
yeah.
20. I mean, more
Oh, yeah.
from the
I've defeated
beginning.
the aging thing. Yeah, that's right.
He's produced many recordings on his own music and worked with a lot of different groups. He taught for many universities. His company, Resident Living, also makes wind chimes, desktop chimes, and other custom designed specialized sound tools and musical CDs. He's studied spirituality and metaphysics for his entire life. This is the way I describe Randy. I say Randy's got one of those minds that remembers every single thing he's ever read or learned, and therefore is the encyclopedia. Randy knows more about sound healing, frequencies, and geometry, and color, and light than anybody on the planet because he's got one of those minds that just remembers everything. It's freaking encyclopedia, and he's actually been to other dimensions where he's like been doing really cool things.
And I'm not competing with Google search or anything,
Right. It's like Randy, what Randy does is kind of takes the whole matrix of the universe of vibration and how it all connects and how we are a part of that whole matrix of life.
Every bit of it. Yeah, and that's my directive to help raise the uh, consciousness in the vibratory field and all these different expressions, kind of like a
Mhm.
Renaissance life. I've got things I've done in other lifetimes, all coming out in this lifetime. I wear so many hats. I don't even wear a hat most of the time. I've
So
still got hair, so from hair raising experiences.
So say I just got a little bit of money and I said, Randy, here's like $100 trillion.
Well,
What
a
would you
number.
do? What would you do with all the money in the world?
Well, I'd have to give it to other people so that they would have some stuff to spend. So there'd be a big distribution thing going on,
Mhm.
and people who need help and getting money out to them for whatever, building things, recording music, designing things, having things brought. But also, if there's certain kind of problems in the world that have not received funding in different areas, to fund them outside of politics and political points of view and any of that, to freely bring about where money can make the difference in something manifesting or not,
Uh-huh.
and be
Right.
of service. The only way I would be given money like that is if the creator thought that I would do the right thing with it and be of service.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that
Right.
I love that.
Cleaning up the water, feeding
Yep. And
people.
the air and the food and the soil.
Right. I mean, no one should be starving. It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely. That's it. All the basics covered. There's no excuse for that not being covered for everybody. There's plenty to go around to totally handle that for people. Nobody having to live on the streets. None of that type of thing. It's a disrespect for the livingness of creation to allow those things to happen. You know.
I got an idea here that I thought of this morning. It came together a little better. So I think we should create a whole new medical system, and so we don't die, we just buy out the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, just like,
Right, right.
yeah,
And then I mean we just create the whole new system and say, look, I mean everybody's going to go here because it's working and it's not hurting anybody and it doesn't cost anything. I mean that would do it, right?
yeah, not based on profit
Right, right.
or any of that. And to have some of the people who created that, like back in the 20s and so on, come to a school for a re-education while they're still here, you know,
Right, right.
so they don't leave here and then all of a sudden they didn't take care of business, you know.
Yeah. Cool, cool. Okay, so the whole conference is on the sound of love, and that would be frequencies, pitches, timbres,
Mhm.
musical intervals, and even the music.
Yeah,
So,
and color and shape,
nice.
symbols in different kind of written language. For instance, I'm going to show you a symbols here for a second. I can jump in. These are from the ETs. Okay, so there's 3 symbols here, and these symbols contain the entire hologram of love. That they say everything there is to know about it. And usually, when you use these symbols, you use all 3. But if you were just to use one, you'd use the one by my finger here that has the fewest lines in it. And they work like this. I mean, they look like that one, and then you add 1 line for the one in the middle, and then you add 2 lines for the other one. Now, the one with the 2 lines in there is called Ete Esse, ETE with an accent, and Esse, ESE with an accent. The middle one is OSA, OESE with an accent, cute accent going off to the right. And the first one here without the middle lines is SA. Now, I learned these from Shawnee, a friend of mine from Sweden, who's an ET contactee that has been since she's 5 years old, and we're dear friends. And I studied a lot of stuff with her. She speaks like 36 ET languages, really phenomenal. And I put these on crystals. I have these engraved on crystals. They could be even engraved or on symbols. They could be put on crystal bowls, all kinds of things. And I also trace these numbers, I mean, these symbols in the air with my hands when I'm doing healing. And that's another way of evoking this. And then I'll say each one 3 times, like the one on the right with the extra line, Ete-esse, Ete-esse, Ete-esse. And I'll draw it with my hands. And then I'll do the one in the middle, and I'll say OSA, OSA, OSA. And then the far right one, I'll just say SA, SA, SA. And when you draw these, which have been very helpful in healing sessions and other things, you start with the little dot at the top, and then you draw the little L part, and then you put the 1 line or no lines, and then 1 line or 2 lines, and then the last thing is this little part over here. You do that, and that's how to draw it. And I've been putting this on all kinds of crystals, quartz crystals, and jewelry that I've had designed, and pendants and things to increase the love, because it represents the entire hologram of love. So to me, I thought this would be a very interesting first thing to start with in the world of symbols. And
You
these
know,
symbols, yeah,
it's really similar to the biogeometry symbol.
they are. They're very similar type
Mhm.
of things like that. Exactly. And this is the whole hologram of love. All the knowledge in it is put into the symbol, and the symbol speaks to hyperspace, and the quantum is a hyperspace symbol. So when you're working with it, you're talking to the whole universe through this symbol and everything that means. And there's a lot of different symbols that and like this and things that I work with, but this is super powerful. You can take a screenshot if you want. Feel free for anybody to take this and use it. And we had some tiles made with these printed on it,
I
and
love
it's
it.
a big fun. I don't have a numerical equivalent of these exactly yet. I may go and pursue that, because usually I do for things like that. But just drawing these, saying them, having them posted here and there in the room, put them in the car, things like that, and to have that whole hologram. So that's some big fun.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, PHUN fun.
Energetically, I could feel those.
So I'll be talking about all kinds of numbers in this field of love, and the numbers have resonances. So you can write the numbers that you hear here and you can draw them and write them. You can write them with your hands. You can use tuning forks, and while the fork is sounding, you can move the fork in to trace the numbers. So that's really fun. One that I did, it came out of my research with Wes Bateman, all our years. It was a 30-year study of the pyramids, and he's a telepath for beings from other planets. He's written a lot of books. It's very interesting. And so we had a lot of research on all the measurements in the Giza, 3 Giza pyramids and what they mean and the numbers. And so if you take the gematria or gematria for English, which is 1 through 9, 1 through 9, 1 through 8. So letter A is a 1 and the letter Z is an 8, okay? Because there's not 27 for the English alphabet, okay? And you don't number it 1 through 27, 1 through 9, 1 through 9, and 1 through 8, that form. And that's where all the solfeggio stuff came from.
So that's how you change the letters to numbers.
Yeah, every letter has a number in different languages. I worked with it in Greek and in Hebrew and Sanskrit, English, like that. And the sacred texts are full of all these kinds of numbers. And the adepts of the sacred texts study this. Excuse me. So one that I discovered, I just really got a kick out of this, I'm excited, is love in English. You get 3, 6, 4, 5. 3 for L, 6 for O, 4 for V, and 5 for E. 3, 6, 4, 5. And that number is, with Wes and I, the Balmer constant for determining the wavelengths of the spectral lines of hydrogen and some other things. By using that number, all the spectral lines are multiples of that particular number. They call them the Balmer constant.
So it's an auspicious number in physics, you're saying?
Absolutely. And I've done a huge amount of work on the hydrogen, the music of the hydrogen molecule and the hydrogen atom, which is our God particle at that level of the atom. There's things that are smaller than that, but that type of love for everything in the periodic table that comes out of hydrogen. So I have years and years of work on that hydrogen. So I think it's really fascinating. And if you do nanometers, you do 364.5, which is half of 729, which is a 27 squared, a big number in the pyramids.
So that would be for a certain type of color, huh?
Yeah, you can determine all the different colors, all the spectral lines of hydrogen are whole number ratios times times either 364.5, which is half of 729, like the cube of Cephas. You get the 9 by 9 by 9 cube, and the volume will be the 729, or you have the 3645. So it ties love into the quantum physics of color and the hydrogen molecule and atom. And that's, I don't know. I get high. Just that little factoid is really incredible. Big fun. And I make tuning forks to all these things. The deal is, when I sound a fork to any of the numbers that I might talk about, most of them today, that's a prayer. So if I sounded the 729 fork, that means 729 times per second. That's vibrating. That's 729 prayers of that number in 1 second. And that's massive. And also on King Solomon's temple, and another part of the love is balancing the male and female. Okay. So there's 2 pillars on King Solomon's temple. One, the white pillar is the male pillar, and the number for that is 729. And
where's King Solomon's temple?
Was in Israel.
Israel. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's really huge. There's a lot of stuff about that, and then because also his respect for the divine feminine and everything. There's a lot of things about King Solomon. A lot of people don't really realize this. Really super profound. And then it's called Jachin, Jachin. That's the word for that pillar. And then the black pillar is the feminine pillar, and the number there is 79, which is an E note. The 729 is an F sharp. The 79, it's also a prime number, and that's Boaz, B-O-A-Z.
I'm sorry, where's the number come from for those pillars?
Well, they have a name, the pillars. So Boaz.
So changing the name into numbers?
Hebrew, and do the gematria on it,
I see.
those are the numbers that you get after the name, the Hebrew
Got it.
name.
Got it.
And the Hebrew language is a space-time language. It's far beyond Earth cultures and where it comes from. It's spread out all over the world. It's huge. And so I've done a lot of work with that. And it is a good language for everybody to learn if they want to really get deep into certain parts of space-time and the symbols and everything else. Is really incredible. So you have these two pillars. And part of how I tie that into love is that in balancing the male and female within each person, whether you're male or female on your outside or any other number of combinations these days, okay, to be politically incorrect. Anyway, but the point is by balancing that. So one of the things that we do in workshops is we put that on their shoulders or on the bottom of our feet, and we change them so that the left side of the body, the feminine side, gets both notes to balance the male female in that side, and the right side gets both, because every bit of it those two need to be working together as part of the divine polarity of what that means. No positive.
What are the two frequencies again?
79 for the female, for Boaz, B-O-A-Z, and 729 for the male, Jachin, J-A-C-H-I-N.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And so I've made those in a lot of different forms. And so that's one way of balancing that alchemy that's not positive and negative. And I want to get back to something about that too. It's about male and female. Same with when you look at various star systems and galaxies, they're spinning. Some go left and some go right, and some embrace each other in the sky in huge spirals that are positive, well, not positive and negative, it's male and female. Same with trees and how they spin. So that's really important. And there's a couple of things with color relative to love that's very interesting. And one is that the golden flower meditation that I found a book on it, and I thought I was finding a book on the Asian aspects of the flower of life, but it wasn't really that. And the meditation works that I'll tell you now so you can all do this whenever you want. You bring gold light, which represents the male active creation principle, the male active creation principle, down through your crown on your in-breath, on your inhale, goes all the way through your body, out your feet, and goes and connects with the core in the earth. With some of, describe that as a giant iron crystal. There's a lot of things but it goes all the way through you. And so the gift of the divine masculine principle runs through your body. It touches all your cells and the spaces between the cells and is given to the earth as a gift. And then on your exhale, as you're exhaling, the black light of the divine feminine, and the black light has all the colors in it. So this is not spooky about black magic. No. This black light is the deepest experience of love that people have from the divine feminine when they experience the black light. And you have to go through black light initiations in the pyramids, and actually having handled your fear of death before you do the black light spiral initiation in the pyramids. It's really heavy duty. And so it's part of ascension in that way. So on your exhale, which goes with the feminine, you're creating space, you see. The male energy fills space. The feminine energy creates the space and holds that like the container that you hear in the womb of the universe. So as you're exhaling, the black light comes up from the core of the earth, up through your feet, all through your body, and goes out your crown and is given as a gift to the universe through you. So you're in this circuit. And when you do this for about 20 minutes at a time, you can get some phenomenal loving energy going in your body. It's huge. The more you do it, the energy will spread out. It won't concentrate like in the sexual organs and create that. It will spread out through, basically light up all your cells. That's what you wanted to do in practicing. It takes a little time, but about 20 minutes, you can really get that standing wave going through your body as a love exercise. It's fantastic to do that particular exercise like that. So that's with that black light. And one of our friends who used to be around Globe, Padma Aeon Prakasha, used to come around us at Globe in some of the early days, wrote a book, The 9 Eyes of Light. And it's all about different Egyptian ascension keys from Egypt. He did a spectacular job on this particular book. And he talks a lot about the black light and how that's the deepest experience of love, of that black light, of that level of the feminine that people would be able to get. It's huge. So in terms of going into the core, out of the feminine, of where that part of love comes from in that black light, and to merge with that and visualize it, okay? And it has all the colors in it. So I don't really have a color for that because it has everything in it. Same with white light, it has all the colors. White is radiating, which is that male part of that, and the feminine part is like absorbing all of that. So in different cultures, people wear white and black, and it has different meanings in different cultures. But the black light in the core of the earth is really fantastic. And then another friend of mine wrote a book. I don't know if any of you here have met him. Kiara, Kiara, Windrider. I don't know if you've heard about him. And he wrote a book called Ilahinor, Ilahinoor. Ilahinor, and that's Turkish. It means divine light. And he has all these different healing techniques, and he goes around the world teaching this stuff from that Ilahinor techniques. And he has a few pages also in his book talking about that black light. Same with Padma in his book, The 9 Eyes of Light. Very incredible information about something that not everybody experiences or gets information about that white. In this case, it's not gold. In this case, it's white and black from the pillars. But the divine feminine core comes out of that black light. And that's at the highest level of, let's say, goddesses like Isis and other famous goddesses through history and what they are, creatrix. That black light is the core of it. So it's an incredible thing. And when you get into balance, another way of balancing that male and female energy is to use some numbers that come out of the Kabbalah and come out of a different Fibonacci-like sequence. It starts out with the numbers 2, 5, and 7. And 2, 5, 7, that number in Hebrew means Urim, U-R-I-M, means they'll go to a priest that has Urim and Thummim, lights and perfections. And so these are the priests that know what's going on. If you want to ask anybody anything about the universe, you find the priest that they have says Urim and Thummim. So the Urim note is 257, prime number, and the Thummim, Thummim, is the number 490, by the way. So those two numbers, and that's another way that I invoke information. Either think of those numbers, visualize those numbers, write the numbers, and I make tuning forks with those numbers for the purpose of summoning that divine knowledge of the universe. So this sequence starts out with 2, 5, and 7, and you multiply it by the right note, and eventually you'll get 666 in there, which is, in this case, the divine solar male, or the solar Christ. It's not a devil thing that you've been hearing about for too long. No, it represents the divine masculine creative principle, which is love from the masculine for creating reality. And of course, there's always the 666 for carbon-based entities, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, 6 protons. But this is not a negative. The negative would be if males got into force or any kind of violent thing with energy, would be taking the 666 and flipping it over and then misbehaving. But the beneficial part is called the solar Christ. That is S-O-N of God, and also S-U-N of God comes from that. There's a whole book about that, Jesus Christ, Son of God. A very, very terrific book about these things. Okay, the next number in the sequence, and this works just like Fibonacci, you add 2 together to get the next one, is 1080, which is in miles the diameter of the moon, and that feminine energy, and one of the Isis numbers, because it has 1 and 8, 1 for the creator and 8 for the body of Isis, which is a, infinity. It keeps recreating itself. So all the combinations of 1 and 8 and 81 and 801 are part of that. 801 is the dove that represents the language of light. That was Mary Magdalene's symbol. It's a G sharp note. 801 is language of light, language of the birds, which meant light language, but it's also the divine feminine expression, plus an animal totem, in this case, the white dove. And you'll see paintings of her with a white dove in it. And that's in Greek, because 1 is alpha and 8 is and 800 is omega. So 801 is the alpha and the omega from Greek. So that's really interesting. And those are very good numbers to work with, like to start a session and finish a healing session or something with a number like that, because it's from the beginning and the end. And it goes deeper and deeper as we get into these things.
You mean
Okay.
play a fork from those numbers, or just think of it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And trace it in the air and write it, and listen to the two together, because it creates a golden mean phi ratio. 1080 over 666 is one of the phi ratios with those two whole numbers. Then the next number is 1746, which represents the mustard seed, that part in the mysteries. I have a paper on that with over 1,700 definitions of the number 1746 out of the matrix. It's called the number of fusion. So how this also works in the Trinity is we use Osiris for the 666, the male principle. And then we use 1080 for Isis. Her name actually is Auset, A-U-S-E-T. That's her Egyptian name. Isis is Greek. And Osiris is Osar, A-U-S-A-R, for the 666. And then they get together and they create Horus, which is the 1746. And he's the fusion of that divine couple of Osiris and Isis, creating this divine child, as it is the third part. And all of these are in phi ratio. So 1746 divided by 666 would be like phi squared, PHI, the golden mean squared, 2.618, etc. And all of these interact together in golden ratios, representing, see, the balance is not 50-50. The main one is 1 and 1.618, or 1 and 0.618, 1 and 1 over 5, 0.618. Those are way those balance rather than 50-50. And so these numbers all represent that particular ratio found throughout, which is like the ratio of love from the creator is the phi ratio. It's everywhere in the stars, all creatures. You see phi everywhere, plants, animals, and so on. It's fascinating.
I've heard it's also, when you're transmitting love, I've heard that it's in the heartbeat, as it not only the harmonics of the heartbeat, but as it goes up and down in tempo, there's the golden mean ratio in there.
Absolutely. And that's key for coherency. If you take the average heartbeat 72, which also is a creation number, because in the pentagon, the golden triangle has two 72-degree base angles and a 36-degree apex angle. And one of the Egyptian canons of proportions, it's every number is a whole number times 72. I have all that written out. I mean, it's really big. Okay. You multiply that, let's say, times 1.6, 8 over 5, and you get 115.2. Well, that particular number in hertz is also one of the frequencies that they measured coming out of the black hole. It's a B flat, like a super important cosmic B flat, 115.2, which is 9 over 5 times 64. The 64C times the ratio 9 over 5, which is 1.8, will give you that 115.2. Very, very interesting in terms of creation. And you divide that by 81 over 80, they call the syntonic comma tuning ratio in just tuning, and you get 113.7777, like that. And that's a low octave of when lightning strikes water. So lightning as in light, as a male active principle striking water, the divine feminine, the water, creates all kinds of amino acids and things that generates life out of the interaction of water and lightning. And it's at a higher rate frequency than the 113. I just stepped it down. I don't have it. It's like way up in the kilohertz, thousands of 10,000ths of frequencies is where that frequency is. Very interesting how that works. So that's another one of the, love out of light. And
it reminds me of all the different spiritual teachers that say our solar system or our galaxy, some even say the whole universe is the essence, its keynote is love.
Yes.
And then I think, okay, is that a frequency or a note, or is it actually a timbre? Because if you look at all the planets and think of each planet as a harmonic, which they're, based on the distance between the planets, they're the same as the harmonics, that you set the volume of that harmonic based on the size of the planet, it's going to give you a very specific tonality or timbre, which could be the love we're talking about.
Part of the influence, but it's everywhere. It's the basis of how the universe works, but a giant definition of love, to where that includes unconditional love, unselfish love, romantic love, all the different forms of love that each have their own vibration. But that is how it's like Yeshua came to Glenda Green, who was a portrait painter, friend of mine, and wanted to have her paint pictures of him. So he shows up, Yeshua instead of Jesus. His name wasn't Jesus. Mm-hmm. Anyway, shows up to her. He can control his particles out of love. He commands the adamantine particles, he calls them. That's where the God particle is happening, smaller than the atom. That flows through everything that exists is made out of adamantine particles and is commanded by love. She's got a whole chapter of that in her book, A Love Without End. Is fascinating book. And so those particles commanded by love create everything that's going on in creation, smaller than they've found. They have not found that size particle because it's smaller than everything else that they have found at this point. And so he's talking to her and she paints his picture and she can talk to him and he shows up by organizing his particles. He did that for me one time and I met him on the beach and was dressed as a Nashville gentleman, which was kind of mind-blowing. It's like, whoa, wow, that's not the usual outfit you see here for the beach. But anyway, but I was, how that love from that interaction affected me is I wrote a song called My or Your Country Gentleman. And I used it in one of my movie soundtracks in a particular scene, a country waltz with classical chords, that I was able to take the energy from that interaction and then put that into a song as an expression of that love that I felt from that interaction. It was big fun.
Can you tell us a little more about the difference between regular love and romantic love versus universal love and unconditional love?
Well, most people have said unconditional, but there is, to me, in my studies of that by different beings, including Thoth Tahuti, part of that, his connection with bringing writing and math and everything and building the pyramids and being part of that.
Thoth?
Thoth, or Thoth, Thoth, so he left some manuscripts in the Himalayas, and this one guy named John Peniel, this priest, got to go there and study these manuscripts, and he gave stories talking about unselfish love that goes beyond, where you don't have any agendas at all. There's no conditions, and that I rate higher than unconditional love. A lot of people don't have that distinction, so unconditional love takes you quite a ways. Romantic can come and go depending on pictures and different feelings and sensations, and not to put that down, of course, it has its place, but there's higher and higher dimensions of the love, and they all have their various frequencies that go with that. It's really quite fascinating. I am going to teach more classes on that, all of that domains throughout the universe and the studies of what love is in that way. But also look at a rose. there's 8 petals around 5, 8 over 5, 1.6, the golden mean. And that's one flower that, and even the fragrances of different roses, representing love. So many people give roses as a gift. Different color roses have different meanings, but that idea of the Fibonacci ratios in the plant of 8 petals around 5 petals, and then you get that 5 petal thing with Venus, how as it goes in retrograde in its orbit, creating in the sky, a 5 petal lotus for the planet Venus, which is also associated with love in a lot of different ways, and Aphrodite and the beings that live there in a different dimension, not the third dimension, but other dimensions of Venus. And that's a whole story as well, in Earth's relationship. And actually, with Venus in that terms of love, Venus's consort is not Mars. Like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That's, I'm blessed John Gray, he's wonderful. But the actual consort is the sun. And a few years ago, we did a big ceremony of Venus transiting the sun. And we used the Venus gong and the sun gongs, that are the planetary gongs, and did special ceremonies for watching that transit as the Venus passed in front of the sun. And, you can see it. And that supreme male principle in the sun, and the female principle with Venus. And there's a whole lot of things to Venus. And actually, what's really interesting with the sun is pi, 1 divided by pi is 0.318, etc., depending on what value of pi you use. But Helios in Greek is 318. And there's all kinds of things of that number. So I'm looking at that as the male principle, like we did with Joaquin on the pillar, the male pillar. Okay. But then the moon, you have 301 for one of the Gematria numbers for 301. So of course we get the rate, and that's basically an E flat note, the 301. And you get that ratios between these. But the most fascinating ones for me in the ratios are the golden mean ratios that you get between certain kind of numbers, like taking that 72, and the simplest musical golden mean is 8 over 5, and it's one of the 10 most harmonious of all musical ratios in all music is 1.6, 8 over 5.
So you're talking about if you take 1.618 or anything and multiply it by 1.618 multiple times, or are you talking about Fibonacci, where it's like the ratio between the numbers in the Fibonacci?
The first phi ratio you get in Fibonacci is not 5 over 3. That's a major 6, 1.666. But the next one is 8 over 5, 1.6. And that simple ratio with no more decimals is like a 512 hertz high C over a 320 hertz E is 1.6. And so in music, it's a minor 6 ratio. But that is one of the key ratios of love. And look at the song, the theme from Love Story, written by Francois Lay, a French composer who did A Man and a Woman and a bunch of soundtracks. It goes out of it, but 10 notes in a row, like C, E, E, C, C, E, E, C, C. You got that 8 over 5, and it's the theme from the movie Love Story. I mean, he knew as a composer to do that. And Mañana Carnival, A Day in the Life of a Fool, that song, A Day in the Life, E, C, the same thing. A lot of composers were very, very aware of that phi ratio when they're wanting to express love in certain ways in their compositions.
As well as the minor third as well, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And now, think the minor third, the simplest one is 6 over 5, which is 1.2, which is also one of the 10 most harmonious intervals in acoustics for music. When people call their children or their pets, like Lassie, if you have a dog named Lassie, I don't think you,
hey ho,
and they call their children, the typical interval all over the world is a minor third. Yeah, which is fascinating. It's a little bit, it's extra endearing. It's a little, the major third is brighter, more energized, but the minor third is more endearing for that interval to be found in just calling the name of a pet, for instance, or children in the family.
Hmm.
That,
And it's
that
mostly going down or going up?
well, I hear it more often a descending interval,
Going down. Hey, ho.
like 384G going down to 320E, that type of thing. Lassie, Billy, Judy, Mary, whatever, all that type of thing, right? That's mostly how I've heard it, but it's still that interval. And when you look into the structure in hydrogen atom, there's all these ratios in there, like 1.1, 1.2, all add up to about 1.6. And that number is found in the prime element, the 1.2. Also, in terms of physics of creation, the love of the creator through the hydrogen molecule and the hydrogen atom. It gets deep.
Wow, so that's really amazing. The musical interval ratio between two notes is actually also in hydrogen, especially the notes of that we associate with love of the minor third is in hydrogen.
Yeah. And I mentioned this syntonic comma ratio, 81/80, 1.0125, that's used in just tuning for making notes a little bit sharp or a little bit flat to tune them to get perfectly tuned chords. I found that ratio in hydrogen between the spectral lines, 81/80, exactly.
It's really interesting that I think about this that most uh, love songs are in minor keys. That and
Yeah,
minor keys are associated with sadness,
yeah,
whereas the energy of love has zero sadness until you lose it, of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right,
Losing,
right.
but that
But it's
that's tender. The bittersweet tenderness of that minor third is what's going after there with the interval. Not, you can be excited about a partner and love or love for animals or gurus, whatever you love, whatever. But that inner bittersweet of the minor third goes more inward. It's really so appropriate with that part of the minor key.
I
You
always
know,
th I
yeah,
always think of it this way also is like minor keys that are associated with sadness brings you out of your head into your emotional body.
yeah,
And that's
absolutely,
where love exists. You can't talk about love and resonate it. I mean, it's not a mental concept, it's a feeling. So by doing the sadness, you get out of your head into your emotional body where you can run love.
absolutely. That's that. The heart runs the show way more than the brain and the head. Although it's been kind of turned around, and as a result of that, we get some problems in the world for getting those two mixed up. But the heart beats. Now, another thing, and also it's interesting that the most common average heartbeat, no, temperature, let me say, start there, is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the temperature in the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid.
The
Uh,
heart itself inside the body,
well,
68
the
degrees?
68, not, and 68 and 72 are the two you hear the most about.
Uh-huh.
But it's a 68-degree in terms of temperature there, you see. And the Earth going around the sun at 365.242 days in a certain octave gives you 68.05 hertz. Again, that's 68. And it's one of the numbers that, without the decimals, 68, in Ibrahim Karim's biogeometry that creates what they call BG3, the biogeometry 3, gold in the spiritual level, not physical gold, ultraviolet for the angelic realm, and the healing form of green. Those three qualities that he measures and everything that they build and do, that the ancients use those qualities. And 68 and its octave 34 are both in his lists of about 19 key numbers that have these qualities. So that's also that even the temperature, there's the number operating as temperature, not as hertz.
And
Or
BG3 is like really positive for amplifying energy and higher
it's
consciousness,
it's
right?
it's a form of love that uses the Trinity, those
Hmm.
three. those
Hmm.
three things together, and how the trinities work. I
And
mean,
that's
even
even based on the way pyramids are built, where you've got the top and the bottom to create the whole that will give you full energy.
and one of the things that I found, a friend of mine, a scientist, I helped him on something. He wrote a book called The Harmonic or Reflections of the Heart. And there's a chapter in there called The Night Side of Nature. So for each of the four forces, strong, weak, electromagnetic, and gravity, he's proposing, he worked with another scientist too on this, that there is the night side of each of those forces, which is very fascinating. And I use that as a metaphor for like an octahedron. The top part, you see like the Giza pyramid, the top part, but the bottom reflection of that you don't see, the unseen, representing the night side, often is more powerful because it supports what the visible part of the reality is. And so it's just like that divine feminine energy is, this is part of love, that our universe, the ETs say, is the blue universe. Our whole universe, not just around Earth or our solar system, is the blue universe. And when you look at the nucleus of the cells under an electron microscope, that plasma is this electric blue-white color. Well, what happens also, fellow that I know of went over to the Himalayas, where they do have a real Shangri-La over there, but you don't get in unless you're invited. There's force fields. And it's not like you're going to send a SWAT team in there or anything. They're not going to get in there. You know what I mean? So when he goes in there, he meets the oldest continuous living woman on surface level, surface dweller, Neil Amatara. She's like 900 and some years old. And she's in lotus position, floating off the ground in a field, an egg-shaped field of blue light, which is part of that goddess energy. And you'll see that like the Christ child inside of an icosahedron with its 20 triangular faces, that represents the water element in the mysteries, and that's blue. And the color they associated with it is blue. You hear the expressions out of the blue, beyond the blue horizon, that song, other things like that. Blue Moon is a little bit different, but that out of the blue place is where this creation is coming from, held by the goddess energy. And sometimes you'll see them inside a Vesica Pisces shape as a portal or a stargate shape, that they're inside a protective shape. And especially if you see a painting like that and the background is blue, it's representing this. When a bunch of prisoners in Siberia back in the 50s were terrible conditions there. And at some point, the Christ being appeared to them and taught them, and they studied every day down in their horrible conditions. And he taught them how to hold their hand out, for instance, and create a flower of any color. He taught them how to create out of the blue. And he talks about the blue energy as being the sustaining energy of our reality, which is exactly the same thing as some of the advanced ETs that say this is a blue universe. And you see that blue glow around the Earth. You see it when you look in the electron microscopes at the cells, the plasma color, and that type of thing. I see that blue, and you say like true blue is another form of life, love and life, supporting life out of love through the color blue. And mostly when you create different wavelengths of blue light and you convert them into sound, you get D notes. And some of the D notes, like 144, 147, 148, all have special meanings in the various sacred texts. So I like to use those notes, different ones, different shades of blue, to represent that out of the blue place. Now, a lot of times that's applied to the throat chakra, okay, which is associated with blue, different shades and different consciousness. But the fact that it's a D note highlights the use of D notes in sound work and sound healing and music for a particular place representing that blue light. So here's Neil Amatara floating with all these other ascended beings over there in the Himalayas, kind of like a Shangri-La, and the oldest male over there is over 4,000 years old in continuous life. But that blue light is what like I mentioned earlier about the black light from the divine feminine. Another part of that for love, as another way of approaching love, is what color? Of course, pink.
What about the pink? Yeah, pink
Yeah,
and green.
and I'm wearing my pink shirt, and I've got
Uh-huh.
a pink necklace of morganite, which is the earth gemstone that has the highest frequency of love in it, beyond in the unconditional and beyond levels. Morganite has that frequency, and morganite is the only gemstone whose certain energies go beyond the earth plane. The other gemstones, all of them, no matter how beautiful and precious and all that, are here in the earth plane, but morganite actually penetrates beyond that into that more unconditional place. So I'm wearing a pink shirt. I've got the pink morganite, and because of that pink, where you've got the white energy, like a white rose blended with a red rose, creating a pink rose, I think is very highly symbolic. I mean, I wore that on purpose to put me into the field of what we're talking about here today. It's one way I.
Where do you think this pink came from? The pink. I mean, why pink?
Well, um, it gets interesting. Like, you look at blood, and you blend white light with it, and white blood cells and red blood cells. That's right there in the codes in our blood, except for blue blood that has some other things in it, including dragon energies, and where the genetics came from the blue blood. But there's blue within that mix as well. And
What?
one of my favorites for that is magenta, because you blend red at one side of the rainbow with different shades of violet on the other side, and that's how you create magenta. And look at the plants. One side is green, and the other side can be like on a leaf, for instance, magenta. And those two colors, green and magenta, are called reverse polarities. They're not opposite notes. They're called reverse polarities. The only two colors that do that. And interestingly enough, the main light from Dinshaw work and others that's used for cancer to help cure and work with cancer is magenta light. Those two parts of the rainbow hugging each other. I mean, that's really, really
So
cool.
I've always thought as green as being, as it being love. It's really interesting that God has put so much greenery on the planet to remind us of love, if green is love.
Yeah, I think part of that, yes, with the different shades of green for the heart chakra, a light green, according to some, absolutely. And that chlorophyll, and the amount of atoms, molecules in chlorophyll is 137. And that's the physics number called alpha. That has to do, it's one of the constants in physics. The number 137 is the metaphor for that. Interesting that the chlorophyll for giving life and how the molecules work together is that number, and a prime number at that, 137, which you put 1 over 729 and you get a 137 and about 81 decimals after that too. a repeating sequence of 81 decimals. I had to put that on a computer to find out that it went that far, because my calculator doesn't go out past about 12. That was interesting. Another number for this love, for that feminine energy, is the word Shekinah. Shekinah is the number 385. That's a G note. And that's representing that female creative presence. Now, the number in the Kabbalistic studies that complements that from the male is Metatron, 314, the first three numbers of pi in a lot of the various values of pi. There's a lot of different ones, but mostly people are aware of the 314 nature. And then when you look at the Ark of the Covenant, there's two angels sitting on the top, and a being who is protected and qualified to sit on the Ark would sit between these two angels. One is male, and the angel is Metatron, archangel. The other one is Sandalphon, which is the feminine archangel, and that number is 930. You put those two together, and I found something in playing with this information. There's a Cathar prayer. The Cathars, who in the south of France were doing saving all the teachings of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene as the basis of their church. Okay, and they did a prayer which I have called the Cathar prayer of 1244. Okay, AD. You add 930 for Sandalphon plus 314 of Metatron, and you get 1244. Interesting how that works. So these correspondences are all over the place. I mean, I got papers and stuff spreading out with these things. I look like a mad scientist doing this stuff because I see like that one I did with hydrogen from the English gematria of the word love. These things are showing up all over the place. And that's the idea of the communication of the light language of numbers that can be in ratios, it can be in angles, it can be in anything, any numbers that have different kind of ratios in them. But it's a further language of light and language like the 801, language of the birds, light language. And so you want to create, 801 over 500 is going to give you a phi ratio, for instance, just like 800 over 500 is 1.6. You just add one more to that. And then also, I'm looking at that vesica shape of 2/3 of a circle for the primary vesica. The width is 1, the height is the square root of 3, geometric.
So that's the two circles overlapping.
Yeah, the exact at the same radius.
Mm-hmm.
When you get done, that's 2/3 of the circle. You take 1/3 out and fold it, and you've got that vesica. The width in the ancient days was 153, the number for Mary Magdalene, and the number of fish in the net in Yeshua's story of teaching the fishermen to fish, which is about fishing out of the adamantine quantum field where the fish are created. So when you go out to fish, you always come home with fish. There aren't X number of fish in the lake or wherever. You go to where the fish were created, and that's what he was teaching them. Plus, fishers of men also meant, and that also included women, but they didn't talk like that then. But fishing their souls, to raise their souls back up to that spiritual alignment with the Creator, is fishers of men, what that phrase was about. The height is 265. So 265 divided by 153 is the square root of 3 to the first 5 numbers. Accurate, absolutely. The next number is the 0 before there's a bunch of other numbers. So it's pretty interesting. And you see that vesica shape, that almond mandorla shape with different beings, male and female, in that primary feminine shape, the vesica, the womb shape, okay? And that womb of the goddess being a shape, you see them on churches, with the different saints inside of a vesica, which also represents a wormhole and a stargate. That Jonah in the whale, he wasn't in a whale, he was in a wormhole, a stargate. But people could get the image of being in a whale in the whale's mouth. So they didn't understand about stargates a couple thousand years ago. So the various parables and stories would have something people could relate to, like a whale.
I always think of the Vesica Piscis as the two whole people coming together to create the eye of God.
That's right. Yeah, totally. Equal, no codependence,
Mm-hmm.
Both of them having their male and female balance, which, in the Arthurian time, knights couldn't just go out and get married. They had to balance their male and female before they were allowed to get married. I thought that was pretty interesting. And they had to have that kind of love so that they would never even reach for their sword unless they were committed to pulling it out. They had enough love to know whether they should make that gesture. There's a lot of people, you start to move your hand toward your sword, that's a symbol, you're alerting them there's going to be some kind of confrontation. So you don't even do that, but which is pretty interesting about balancing that male-female energy in there. So I used the Metatron and Sandalphon to do that. I used the Urim and Thummim, the 257, the 490. I used the pillars 79 and 729 as these special pairs. And then I also used the 666 and the 1080 and the 1746 to represent that which gets created out of the divine marriage or coupling of the two spiritual beings. Those are very important. There's also some other frequencies of love that's very interesting. I get this from Grigory Grabovoi, Grabovoi from Russia. And I studied his material and took one of the courses. And he has the entire human body, all the veins, muscles, everything broken down into numbers. And he does healing, including growing limbs and growing teeth, by knowing how to use these numbers within the quantum field. He's famous for that in Russia. So here's some numbers that are too many digits necessary, most of them, to put in a tuning fork, but I can do them with a series of forks. And I'm going to give you some of these Grabovoi numbers that you can write down later and you listen to this, you know. So for love, the frequency he gives, and this is a guy who can look at an airplane and tell you when different ball bearings in the engines are going to give out. This guy is like from another planet, seriously. He disguised as a human, but his teachings and what he does is super. Basically, here's one of his, before I give you that number, formulas for creation. E equals Vs times 10 to the minus 17. E equals Vs times 10 to the minus 17 seconds. E for energy equals the V for volume of information multiplied by the speed of perception. Energy equals the volume of information multiplied by the speed of perception. And so you'd have, you know, like 16 zeros and then a 1 after it, representing 17 decimal places in that. And we're talking minuscule how fast that speed of thought is. And that's a good formula to write down and paste up here and there. E equals Vs times 10 to the minus 17th, you know, the little superscript there. Okay, that's incredible. And now here's a number that transforms everything into light. So that's love. Only could do that if with a certain amount of love could you transform certain things, even unlikable things, whatever, and transform them into light through love. And now you write this number vertically. So I'm going to start at the top and I'll go down. I'll repeat this. So it goes 97888, and 888 is the gematria for Lord Jesus Christ in Greek, among other things. So 97888, 197, which is the gematria for Emmanuel, the number 197, which is a prime, and then 19. So 97888, 197, 19. And 19, you get 19 circles in the two-dimensional cross-section of the flower of life, 12 around 6 around 1. And it's a prime number. So that's an example of where 19 is very important in the field of creation in a symbol, specifically 19 circles. That's very interesting there. So
what about 432 being the heart meridian?
I love that. There is so many, we could do an entire talk just on the number 432 and all the things that it relates to. It's incredible. And it's octaves. 216, Palmoni, the numberer of secrets. It also means to make light, the number 216. And 1/10 of a mile in the diameter of the moon, 2,160. The sun, 864,000 mile diameter average. Half of 864 is 432, which would be the radius of the sun, 432,000 miles.
Also,
and
the
goes on and on.
The distance to the sun is 108 diameters of the sun.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a
which
lower
is an octave 432.
A double octave below the 432. Absolutely. I have so many cool things that go with those numbers. Let me see while we're right there, if there's a note that I have to say something else about that. We might get there. You know,
we only got about 10 minutes.
I want to give you some numbers here from Grabovoi that are, so love, it would be this. It has 888 and then a little space, then 412, a little space, then 128, 9018. Those are all together, 128, 9018. So you leave a little space when you're visualizing it or you're saying the number. So 888, 412, 128, 9018 for love, the cosmic frequency. For eternal love, 888 space 912 space, then these are all together, 818, 848. So 888-912-818-848 for eternal love. Now, fallen love is a shorter one, 515889, one 6 digits, no spaces. 515889. The spaces are important. Then the oxytocin, well, I won't give that, that's much more complicated. The golden rule, do unto others, that whole thing, is 591 space, 718 space, and then 918-1419. Those 7 are all together. So 591 space, 718 space, 918-1419 for the golden rule. And then for the heart, it's these 12. 918 space, 749 space, 328 space, 081. He doesn't have that many numbers that have a 0 in it. And with these numbers, what order the numbers are in is like really important, like with the solfeggios. Like we'll take 369 and then 396 and then 639, 693, 936, 963. What order those 3 numbers, 3, 6, and 9 are in, it's a total, well, it's a different frequency and a different meaning, but the order of the numbers and these numbers I just gave you is absolutely crucial. They all have a meaning. If you've got 12 numbers in this series of numbers, what number is in position 1, what number is in position 2? That's part of the inner alchemy of this Grabavoy mastery of numbers that he has.
So you could just say these, you could just even repeat them in your head, or you could have 4 tuning forks and go ding, ding.
That's right.
Ding, ding, or even 4 tone generators. Ding,
absolutely.
Ding,
Totally.
Ding, ding.
And some of them, I can move the decimal, like 515.889. I can make 3 decimal points, or 5158.89. I can do that. But some of these are so long, no matter what I do with the decimal, I can't get those all on a fork, let alone put that all in the sound frequency. But you can write that, you visualize them. You can even project yourself standing in the middle of the numbers and see yourself in a silver sphere and there's his techniques for how you work with the numbers is really, really incredible. Light of the creator is 123-111-5025, and there's no spaces. 123-111-5025 means light of the creator. Now, in Hebrew, working with that, we get light is 207, or AUR for light out of the Kabbalah. Then infinity is 1 Ein Sof, AIN, and then SOPH is 1577. 15, that means infinity. But Ein Sofer, with a dash between Ein and a dash between SOPH and AUR, is 1784. Those 3 are real key numbers relative to light. And I feel that all of that is the way that light and love interact together, which is one of my main points for all this that I've been sharing, kind of a equal amount of stuff about light, and it brings in color and then and sound, how light is. And we talk about that. You see the light coming out of people when people are really loving. You see the different kinds of light, and how light and love work together, to me, is in the core of what love means and what it means to radiate love and to feel it, to experience it, all the different kinds. And we'd have to do a whole workshop on it for me to get into the alchemy of each of the different types. That's
okay. So out of all the things you've shared, what is your favorite for resonating love?
Well, I have the whole cluster.
I know,
because I live in that. I swim. This is like I'm swimming in the ocean and knowing that here's water and there's salt and there's fish.
So let's choose. Okay,
I'm in it.
Choose one, and let's do it, and really just sit with it for a second to end.
Okay, let's do the Ein Sof, infinity.
Okay.
And the 1577 D7, which is a G sharp note, by the way. And just thinking of those letters, saying those letters.
Say it again. Say it. What are the letters?
AIN, Ein, and Sof, SOPH, Ein Sof.
Ein Sof. Okay.
And out of that space is where wisdom, there's people who go to the realm of Ein Sof to bring wisdom into this world, which is where love and wisdom work. The love wisdom ray is the one I'm dancing with, you see.
Nice.
That has the pinks and all that, but also with the gold for the wisdom and the green and the pink, and all of that is part of that love wisdom ray. And that's what I'm working with the math and all the numbers and everything else, because I experience this as love and doing this work. I'm not in my left brain in the normal way. I actually
that's for sure.
I spent hours and hours doing these things, and even for today, going through it. I mean, it's like a big numerical meditation, writing them, saying them, looking at them, or play the forks. I have forks to a lot of this, and play the fork and listen to the sound. I swim in it. That's, to me, is living and walking the talk of the unified field, to swim in this and enjoy it. This is
cool.
Light language, the creator talking to us in numbers, right? Oh, it's awesome.
I love it. Ein Sof.
Yeah.
Ein Sof. Ein Sof. Ein Sof.
Ein Sof.
Ein Sof.
Yeah.
Wow. This is great, Randy. Really. Oh my God. The world is so interesting and unique and cosmic.
Isn't it?
It's really just, it's like we know so little too, as to how it's all put together, but we're making headway.
And just to be able to grasp more and more of it as we raise our frequency, and spirit acknowledges the raise in frequency and shows us more, because we've qualified to have the keys to unlock that door or that window or that place where certain things are secreted away, but with the right love, it opens up happily for you, and that's the prayer, to walk that talk, sleep that talk, be the love that we are. That's the message.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
As always, never boring.
No, we have enough here. We could go on all week with these things,
Cool. Cool.
Thank you, David. Big fun. Big fun.
Yeah.
PHUN, educated fun.
Bye fun.
All right. That's right.
All right. Take care until next time.
Okay. Blessings to everybody listening to.
Yeah.